and I know your face like your music. Can you hear me now? Can we make a vow ever to be faithful? I will show you how. My true love, offer and turn to me what no one can see, your deepest dreams of your darkest nights, and your eyes like lights ever burning. I will hear your voice, and I see your brow. Let me know your face. Let me know it. I will find a way through fear and doubt. I will find you out. Let me know your face. Let me know it. It was a crisp, cold night. I was starring in a show I had dreamed about doing for years, my first big break. I was backstage in the wings, and I was wearing my beautiful white long gown covered with glittering jewels, the curls of my dark hair cascading down my shoulders, adorned with flowers. I heard my cue. It was time for my entrance. I glided onto the stage, immediately blinded by the stage lights. But I was used to that now, not being able to see the audience of 2,500 people sitting in the darkened theater. The Phantom stood behind me, gently whispering words. It was time for my solo. I began to sing, my voice crystal clear. I began to sing higher and higher yet. I began climbing the octave. My hands started to shake. I heard the orchestra swell, and just as we got to the pinnacle of the song, the notes got stuck in my throat. I took a step back. I took a deep breath into my diaphragm. I gathered up all of my training, and once again, I reached, and nothing. Silence. I froze. I looked at the conductor, who was scrambling to get the musicians to skip to the end of the song. The Phantom came up to my left, looking at me as if to say, "Are you okay?" No, I was not okay. My face was flushed, my knees were shaking, my heart was beating ferociously out of my chest, and 5,000 eyes were looking at me. Every actor's nightmare. Stage fright had gripped me and taken me hostage. I walked off stage right, and moments later the audience heard, "Ladies and gentlemen, for the remainder of this performance, the role of Christine Daae will be played by," and my understudy's name was read. This is where my journey began. My quest to ensure that I would never experience another moment like that again. I began training myself in ways that helped me not only overcome the stage fright, but helped me take powerfully center stage of my career and my life. And I'm going to share with you 3 tips that helped me do that. So before returning to Phantom, I knew that the stakes were high. Producers were watching me, understudies were in the wings waiting to take my job. I knew I had to shift quickly. So the first thing I did, I went to see my acting teacher. And after telling him what happened, he yells at me, "Who do you think you are?" I braced myself for a dramatic acting teacher lecture. But instead, he asked me to write a list of all the qualities that I thought made me who I am. All right, so I wrote down, I'm passionate, I'm loving, I'm kind, I'm strong, and I have a good sense of humor. He said, "Really? Is that it? Who are you that you don't want anyone to see?" I didn't like this acting exercise anymore. I stared at him a moment, and I said, "I'm afraid I won't measure up. I'm scared. I'm insecure. I'm impatient." We added more to the list. He said, "Good. I want you to take this list back to the dressing room. I want you to read it every night before going on stage. Now go back and really play Christine." What did this have to do with my nerves? Well, I went back into the show, and that night, when I got to that song, my hands started to shake again. All the nerves started acting up in my body again. And in that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. I had to stop fighting and just surrender to the vulnerability of being seen. My list. I opened up to my own yearning, my own strength, my own compassion, my own confusion, my own love, fear, all of it. It all existed that night. I embodied the role with all of who I was. By the time I finished that performance, tears streaked down my face. My Christine Daae began to have layers of depth and color I didn't know I had access to before. I learned that I was giving my best performances because my vulnerability and my strength were side by side. I finally allowed my unique, authentic self to emerge. So if any of you have stage fright, in the moment, take a deep breath. Accept it. Acknowledge it. Know that your audience isn't there to judge you. They're there because they want to connect with you. And my first tip is trust that all of who you are is enough and needed. Well, I still had some work to do with the nerves. So the second thing I realized was that my imagination had been conjuring up all these stories, disaster stories of what might happen. So I thought I'd forget my lines. I thought I'd fall center stage in a heap engulfed in my stage costume. I also realized that my imagination had been conjuring up the story that the actor next to me, wearing a half a white plastic mask, a black tuxedo, living in the basement of an opera house, mysteriously, magically appearing to give me voice lessons, was also real. Both were my imagination. In the first, I was not in the driver's seat. In the second, I was. So I knew I could reframe these negative thoughts. So I began practicing daily, using my imagination to envision the end result that I wanted, standing confidently on stage, connected to my fellow actors, strong in my vocal delivery. I began thinking about the adrenaline, the energy, as good. It was just energy wanting to be expressed. I went further and thought about all the unlimited possibilities that could come from each performance. And pretty soon, the stage fright began to be much less interesting than the amazing successes I was making up in my mind. But the stage began to be my playground. I was having fun. So let me ask you this. Do you remember when you were young? Remember how you play all day long, making up imaginary games? Anybody do that? Army games, tea parties? Did anybody have an imaginary friend? Yeah. Do you remember how fun that was? Why have we forgotten that our imagination is one of the most powerful tools we possess? You can use it right now to alleviate symptoms of stress. You can call it forth at will, just as you did as a child, to give you freedom. I'm not suggesting you live in a little childlike fantasy, and it's not positive thinking. It's actually a leadership mindset. Use your imagination with intention to choose what you want to experience and why, with a willingness to believe it exists. Actors use this all the time. Athletes use this. It's mind rehearsal. So if you practice over and over and over again with details, by the time you get into your public speaking event, your job interview, your boardroom meeting, that first date, that toast at a wedding, you're already in peak mind and body state. So visualize your end result. That's tip 2. My third tip is ground your body. I'm going to show you some tips to loosen up nerves from your body and command the room. So first, take some deep breaths into your diaphragm. 5 deep breaths while moving your arms and the energy. Ground your feet to the floor, bring your shoulders back, and walk with an even gait. It gives you the air of confidence, even if you're not feeling it. Rest your eyes on your audience. Resting your eyes 3 seconds or more on a person lets them know you're present and that they matter. And focus only on sharing your message with others. So the 3 tools: ground your body, visualize your end result, and trust that all of who you are is enough and needed. So by using these tools, I was able to release my stage fright, and I have had the joy of singing with the 3 tenors, Jose Carreras at Radio City Music Hall, singing for presidents, royal dignitaries, and standing right where John Lennon stood, recording my own CD at Abbey Road Studios in England with the National Symphony. I could not have imagined these possibilities doing Phantom. People ask me if sometimes I'm still nervous before performing. Yeah, sometimes. But I'm happy to say that in over 15 years and thousands of performances, not one understudy has ever gone on for me again. It's not about overcoming fear. It's about instead turning your attention toward your commitment to use your passion and share your ideas, your wisdom, your life with others. You know, data says that the #1 fear among all people, even above death, is the fear of public speaking. I ask you and invite you to question, how can we collectively change this? What if the world instead had the #1 fear being not speaking up, not sharing yourself? You know, William Shakespeare has this wonderful quote, "All the world's a stage." Don't let fear keep you in the wings. Set yourself free. Walk boldly onto the stage of your life with courage, confidence, and joy, creating unlimited possibilities. Thank you. Thank you.